what I want to say is over the rest of this year, start to plan your budget incrementally to increase. So don't go from 3 to 10, okay? Go from 3 to 4, from 4 to 6, from 6 to 7, from 7 to 8, right?
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
Welcome to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. I'm Dr. Pete Camiolo.
And I'm Dr. Stephen Franson.
And it is great to be with you here today, whether you're joining us on your mobile phone and you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app, or you're on YouTube and you're listening to us and watching us. We are excited to be with you here today. We are fired up. If you don't feel it, we have, there's a ton of energy going on right now. You know, we are just experiencing a resurgence. I'm telling you, we have come off of a remarkable 2021 Q1. Dr. Steve and I, we're just talking about all the clients that we get to serve. So many of them have had just a benchmark kickoff to 2021, some of their best quarters they've ever had, the best quarter they've ever had in the history of their business. Many of them had benchmark months and numbers putting up in visits and collections. And so we're just experiencing the resurgence. And we spoke to this, Dr. Franson, in 2020. We talked about when we released the Phoenix plan that there were 3 phases and it was a stacking. And we've now actually seen, because we have hindsight, we've now assessed that this is precisely what happened. We had the stabilization phase, which in many ways, the stabilization phase is the foundation of the entire mobilization plan. And guess what? We continue with stabilization. We haven't stopped stabilizing, but we remember there was a time when that was our primary and ultimate focus. That was what we did.
Everybody remembers that season.
100%. You'll never forget it. You'll tell stories to your grandchildren about that one. And then there was the reactivation phase, which was when we deployed strategies to reach back out into your patient base to have people return, right? Because people were hunkering down in the bunker. People were afraid. They didn't know what to do, and they needed to hear from their leader. And that's what we talked about. They'll remember what you said and how you led. It was so important that, you were there to reach your hand back out and bring people up and out. And again, some people took days, some weeks, some months, and some maybe never returned. But we did our job, which was we had a strategy. We reached out. That was the reactivation. And I know, Dr. Stephen, many of the clients I get to work with now have a official reactivation strategy and campaign built into their business plan and model moving forward, which was just a huge upgrade to their business because that was a blind spot for many leading into this. And now we said the third tier, the third stage, which was a stacking, was the mobilization. And we didn't know exactly when, Dr. Franson. I remember we kind of thought maybe Q3, 4, we'll see. But I'll tell you what, it definitely was Q1. We really saw the mobilization, people coming back out in Q1, at least in North America, for many of the clinics that we have. I know this isn't around the whole world and in every area, but we saw a big resurgence here in 2021 in Q1. And here we are in 2021 Q2. That's where we are right now. I don't know where you are listening to this, but this is where we're recording this, and this is when it will air. Is we know that now is the time. And Dr. Stephen, we're calling this the roaring 2020s. That's what we're saying. And, we talked about at our traction immersion how you are the storm. We talked about charging into the storm in 2020. In 2021, we said, be the storm. Be the storm. And that was amazing. If you were at our traction immersions, you heard Dr. Stephen release that. That was just absolutely inspiring. So I'll tell you right now, it's good news, friends. It's good news. It's happening. Mobilization is here. It is now. And we want to talk about what does that look like to go and grow? Because maybe you forgot, maybe you're new, or maybe you've been in the game for a while and you just haven't gotten back into it. We want to get you back where you need to be mentally and very tactically. And so it's time. We don't want you to miss it. And we're going to talk about marketing today. We're going to talk about marketing from the perspective of how do you invest your resources of time, energy, focus, and we're going to get into money today too, because this is one where there is a gap, Dr. Steven.
Yeah, there's never been a time like it. And I want to make sure that we catch everybody's attention right now. If you were with me, I would just grab you by your shirt right now and say, listen to me, now is the time, right? So it's amazing to watch what's happening in the midst of all the chaos and craziness. And I get it, right? We're not going to commiserate around the craziness of the quote unquote new normal. We don't have time for that. Why? Because the marketplace is opening back up. The world is opening back up. The people are dumping back into the marketplace. The nature of the beast right now is that people have said, okay, I'm on the other side of this. It's almost like the tornado has passed. We're going to come out of the bunker, right? And we're going to start looking around, and we have to get back to life. We got to get back to doing the things that we have to do and want to do. Now, everyone is seeing this. It's been fun to watch in our organization, people having the best months ever, the best quarters ever. What I want to do is encourage you to join us, right? So I want to make sure that you come off the sidelines and get on the field. If you've been standing back and waiting, and we totally understand why, right? So because maybe your community was not ready yet. Maybe your community was not ready to engage or hear the message, right? So what I'm telling you right now is if you've been waiting for permission, consider this your permission. In fact, consider this your mission. Okay, we're giving you your orders right now. We have to seize the day. There's going to be a window of opportunity here in the next 12 to 18 months where chiropractic is going to experience the greatest growth in its history. And I want to make sure you're participating in it. Okay, so I want to make sure that you see the trending is all there. Look what the market's doing, right? So the stock market, hopefully between recording this and you hearing this, the stock market doesn't crash, because I'm telling you what, right now, all the futures are bullish, right? So everyone is looking at this thing saying consumer confidence is at an all-time high. People have money in their pocket for various reasons, right? So we've got stimulus money dumping into our communities. People are getting back to consuming, spending money, right? So the futures are bullish when you look at things like trends in dentistry. People are getting back to the dentist, optometry, elective surgeries and procedures, right? So people are dumping back into the community. And let's face it, there's an incredible pent-up demand right now, right? So people for the last 12 months have been procrastinating taking care of everything, especially their health, right? So if they could avoid going into a medical establishment, into a health center, a hospital, or a chiropractic practice, they would avoid it at all costs. Because why? They're terrified of a virus in town, right? So here's the deal. Because the narrative is shifting and people are coming back into the community, people for whatever reason are feeling safer, right? So, we have the vaccine story that we could get into, but right now what we're going to recognize is the people have confidence and they're moving back into the community and the world is opening back up. I want to make sure that you recognize that people are dumping back into the marketplace and that you don't miss this opportunity, because we want to make sure that they are walking into your office. They can't be walking by your office, because if they walk by your office, you know where they're headed, right? They're headed to the drugstore. They're headed to the doc in the box, right? They're the crisis care centers, right? So the emergency rooms, or to some specialist. You know what's going to happen. They're going to fall into this black hole. The truth is people were sick before COVID. They've never been sicker, right? This last year has led to so much just lifestyle, just downgrade between diet style and exercise dropping off the charts, and drinking so much and so much social stress. Your community's never been sicker, never been in greater need. When we talk about these body signals that people have been ignoring, whether it's their headaches or their carpal tunnel syndrome or their low back pain or their sciatica, listen, they need to understand what body signals are. They need to understand that there's a better way to better health. They need to understand that you're available and you're really, really good at helping people that are already in trouble get their health back and stay healthier. Dr. Pete, there's never been a time like this. There's a window of opportunity. I'm excited that we're seizing it already, and I'm going to encourage our listeners to push in all the chips. The time is now to raise your hands. In fact, wave your arms and say, we're right here and we're ready to help.
Yes, now is the time. I think you guys have heard between Dr. Franson and I, and again, we have visibility into clinics around the entire world. And so because of that fact, we can actually say this with great confidence that the truth is now is the time. And so first is time. So this is the time. So timing. The second is energy. I want to talk about two things. Where's your energy and where's your focus? I want to talk about that through the lens of your marketing. We're going to be looking at that and where you're going to be investing the resources of your energy and your focus and your money. And Dr. Steven, I think we're going to talk about, the gap, the money gap, and some of the challenges that people face. But we want to give you a lot of encouragement here today through our conversation. We want to have a conversation about, how do you get back into the marketplace? How do you get there when, you haven't been there? Maybe this is new to you, meaning like if you were early on in practice. And Dr. Stephen, I remember back in the day, early in practice, and you have no money, but you need new patients. And what do you do when you have no money and you need new patients? Like, I think if whoever's listening to this remembers when that was your reality, you did whatever you had to do, right? You did whatever you had to do. And that's what happened. Yeah, that's what worked. And I remember, myself, saying like, I'll do whatever it takes. That was my attitude, was whatever it takes. And so, it was head down, bum up. And it was just, that was the reality. And so we did whatever we had to do. We didn't have the money, but I had the energy. So what did I do? Well, I channeled my energy, and, I used that in a way where I said, listen, there are things you can do at no cost or very, very low cost if you want to get things going, right? If you want to seize the day, right? We said the time is now. So what are things that you can do? Because I don't want to just talk about going out and just spending tons of money right away. Let's be smart about this. Let's say, what can we do that's no cost or even low cost that you could do right now? It could be you. If you're running a clinic with associates, this is for you and your associate doctors, your team. We know that people are listening to this, have multiple clinics and have, marketing directors and departments, all this stuff. And then we know that some of you listen to this and you're about to launch your practice or you're just early on. So the reality is that no cost activities were always some of my favorite.
Absolutely.
And my number one favorite activity of all is patient education, because I knew that if I could just educate people on the value of chiropractic and they could have an understanding of the significance of it, that I was always leading up to an ask. I was always leading up to an ask. If they didn't tell me this is amazing, I've got to tell this person, that person, the other person. If they didn't come out and tell me directly, then I would ask. And eventually so patient education is one of the most powerful ways to get your marketing going. Always leading with giving that value, that educating, that energy, which elicits a response. People respond to that, not only for themselves, but they start to think about other people. And again, a lot of that has to do with how you communicate, but just so powerful. We covered this in our attraction immersion as well, Dr. Stephen, but just going through the process of becoming a patient in my office, there was multiple times I counted, between 20 and 30 touches early in the client journey. It's just all these ways for them to partner with us and to cooperate with us in our initiatives to reach more people in our community. And so again, these are all things that if you say, well, I'm not really sure, what I could be doing for marketing, I'm like, well, let's just start with what you got. What do you have in your hand, Dr. Steve?
All right, Dr. Pete, I'm going to interrupt you, man, because I'm going to reel this back, right? So I want to set the frame. So I hear you. You are ready to start coaching and ready to start going. Before we get into the practical and tactical, let me frame out what you're describing, because I know you want to get after it and start telling them exactly what to do. So here's the truth, guys. We're looking at the potential of growth through this next year or two, right? So you're looking at extraordinary growth if you follow the instructions that we're about to lay down in the next couple of episodes, right? So there's a trajectory that we want to see. There's a trajectory of growth that we want to see over time. And if you're anything like us, there's this linear, beautiful upward trajectory. And I think everybody wants that same thing. And our experience is that's what doctors will experience if they apply this system. Okay. So we also observe that as we go through that trajectory, there can be some interruptions in that trajectory, right? And we call them gaps, right? So there are gaps that keep people from continuing on that trajectory. There'll be a certain level of growth, and all of a sudden they hit a gap and they might plateau, or they just get stuck there and they can't get on the other side of that gap. So we're going to do a series here. We're going to bust this series open a little bit. So we're going to do a series on the first two gaps that we see. And if you think about this first gap, what Dr. Pete was starting to explain there, this first gap we call the money gap, right? So the money gap means, listen, I know that I need to be marketing to really grow my practice, right? But here's my challenge. I ain't got no money. Right. So I don't have the money that I need to do the marketing. And here's where this becomes an eddy for you. This is where you get stuck and it becomes this vicious cycle, right? So where you have no money, so you do no marketing, so you end up with no new patients, so you have no money, right? So you can see where that happens, right? So this is a place where we meet so many chiros, and it could be you're new in practice. Okay, so you'd be like, it's somewhere in the $0 to $15,000 a month in collections, right? For that new practice, that doctor that's in launch. And there's a gap between the 0 and 15,000 a month and $15,000 and $30,000 a month. That's usually where this gap lives, right? So that gap is the no money gap. And I don't have the money that I need to do the marketing that I need to do to draw in the new patient leads that I need to take my practice to that next level and get over the gap. So, you might have a money gap for a different reason, right? So maybe you had a tough 2020. Maybe this COVID thing has got you sideways and you've been running super lean because I just did not have my practice, really lost a lot of ground. So regardless of where you are with your money gap, we're going to encourage you guys today. This conversation is for you because we want to help you get on the other side of this money gap. And we're going to talk about some of the no cost and low cost elements that you can do and to put into place to get that early traction, right? So here's what I know to be true. So there is a dramatic underspending that happens in chiropractic just broadly. Okay. So if you need a heuristic, if you like a rule of thumb like I do, you want to be investing approximately 10% of the revenues that you want to reach by the end of the quarter every quarter. Okay. So if you're right now, you're saying, okay, so I want to be doing $300,000 this quarter. There's 3 months in the quarter. I want to do $100,000 each quarter. You've got to set your budget so that it's 10% of where you want to land, right? So you might say, Francis, 300,000, I'd like to make it to 30,000. Okay. So wherever you are right now, take 10% of where you want to land at the end of the quarter and at the end of the year. And that makes up your marketing budget. So don't use money that's quote unquote extra money that you have laying around. You actually set out a marketing budget and say, I need to create this 10% budget to invest in my practice and marketing to get me to that next level of the practice, right? So figure out where do you want to be at the end of the quarter and at the end of the year, and use that revenue number. 10% of that revenue number would be your marketing budget, and it's a best practice. Dr. Pete, the truth is most chiros are spending less than 3%, and that's true for North America. So US and Canada, listen, these are the hard numbers. Less than 3%, it's like 2.9%, right? 2.83%. When you think about it, man, talk about just sucking the oxygen out of the room, right? So taking the oxygen out of the engine of your marketing machine and the practice growth. When you take oxygen out of the equation with an engine that's trying to produce horsepower, right? Fuel, air, and spark, the money that you're spending on your marketing, that's going to be the oxygen that makes this thing churn, right? So you can't rob your engine of oxygen, or you're robbing yourself from the horsepower of growth.
So I want to talk about a couple of things. This is a really good conversation to have. So I remember being in a position at times in practice where I wasn't in launch, but let's say you went through a rough season, and I've been through some rough seasons in practice. Dr. Steve, I know you have, and I think we all have.
For sure.
So let's just be real. So the money gap for me was my overhead was high because I had a bigger team. I had my own personal life overhead. And you just didn't feel like you had the cash.
You have a big team at home too.
Yeah, you got a big team at home. You got a big team in your business, and you got overhead, and you made some decisions that you were living with, right? So I know I'm talking to some people right now. You made some decision. You're like, maybe you kick yourself a little bit because you're like, man, I made this huge commitment, and now I've got this thing. What am I going to do? And that COVID kind of brought some of that to a head for a lot of us. You got very exposure in this time, and so our hope is that you relook at how you run your business, honestly, and so I think it was a come to Jesus time for everybody globally. But I think for us as business owners, entrepreneurs, specifically as chiropractors, really it was an opportunity for us to look at it and say, okay, because Dr. Stephen, what you're laying out here, guys, is our strategy for us to reach the world. It's a strategy for us to impact the world. We're seeing that the effect of the lack of principled health mindedness in the world, and we're seeing the symptom of that, and we're seeing that in a massive way. So guys, recognize that we're coming to you from a place of thinking long-term. And this is looking back and saying, guys, for us to have the impact that we need to have, that we want to have, for our purpose to be fulfilled, we got a lot of work to do. So we have to be penetrating the marketplace, and we have to look, okay, this is what is, when you give the heuristics of 10%, that could be like, what, to a lot of people who are listening. I know, because I know so many of you I get on the phone with, and you're proud of the fact that you don't spend any money on marketing, or very, very little. And you're proud of that. And listen, I'm proud of you for having a lean, running a lean operation, hopefully highly profitable, but it doesn't always translate into that. And so what I want to speak to is the journey from where you are now to where, Dr. Stephen, you're casting the vision, which is, for some of you, 10% would be, just it's a Grand Canyon gap. For some of you, maybe you're closer, or you're already there, or maybe you're on the other side. You're spending more than that on your marketing. We need to reel you back in and start optimizing strategies. In other words, the no cost, low cost doesn't only apply to somebody with no money. It actually may apply to somebody spending too much money on marketing in relation to what your revenue is.
Throwing money at problems, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so again, this applies to everyone, but I'm going to speak directly to you who are listening to me that say, you know what, 10% seems like a big jump. So, right now I'm at wherever, let's call it 3%, because that's the average right now in North American. I think that's North America, right? North American, Canada, Canadian, exactly, American.
Right. Yeah.
So, so what I want to say is over the rest of this year, start to plan your budget incrementally to increase. So don't go from 3 to 10. Okay. Go from 3 to 4, from 4 to 6, from 6 to 7, from 7 to 8, right? As you generate, and you have systems to generate revenue to reinvest back in the company, and budget, like Dr. Stephen said, budget says, I'm telling my money where it's going to be spent. It's not after, it's before. So in the months coming will be a reflection of what we just did. So in other words, build up the revenue, your cash flow, so that you can budget, because you actually have a plan and a strategy. This is why we talk about the marketing machine and being, 12 months, 90 days, 60 days, 30 days ahead at all times. This is where all this comes back to a head and says, you have to be the CEO of your business. You have to be thinking what's important now, what's important next, for what's important ultimately. And I think the ultimate is the 10%, Doc. So let's work on where you're at now, moving towards what's important next. And this is where I think, Doc, and I jumped into it. You're right. I was very excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think
gets into,
I got to say something that, I have a perspective on this, is like, I'm going to tell you right now that I want you to behave like you're investing in a business, because you are. Okay. So I want you to recognize that if somebody gave you a hot stock tip and they said, listen, silver is about to pop. Listen, we've got this whole, governmental approved, signed legislature coming down the pike that everything's going solar, and solar needs silver, and silver is so undervalued, and you got to get in heavy right now. Here's the insider trading information. Like, it's about to happen, and we are going to mandate that everybody has to use solar. Like, literally, it's going to go through the roof. And you got the inside word from somebody, and you're like, okay, I've got to take action. You would sell your car, right, and get some money and buy some silver, right? So, for example, I'm telling you right now, here's the inside information. The time is now. Invest in your business. It's amazing to me how people will, invest in the stock market casino. They'll invest in other people's businesses, basically investing in giving somebody else your money, saying, I think you're going to do better in your business than I'm going to do in mine. That's what you're saying. Now, you're not hearing me say, don't be diversified, but people ask me all the time, Franson, what do you invest in? What do you spend your money? Where are you putting your money? Right? I'm like, you know where I'm putting my money? Right back into Franson Enterprises. I have 5 businesses. I have a portfolio of businesses that all service the chiropractic ecosystem. I invest in me and my team because I know that nobody's going to outperform what we do. And there's absolutely no freaking way they are, right? So if you want to look at yourself and your business and be like, I know this industry, I know this business, I have influence over this, I'm in charge. And Franson just said, there's an extraordinary opportunity push your chips in, invest in your business, guys. Okay. So I'm with Dr. Pete, set yourself a runway. You don't want to break yourself, right? So, but at the same time, you have the money, you can find it. Okay. So right now it's make sacrifices elsewhere and push your money in and invest in your business, because there's a window of opportunity right now that I want to make sure everybody's capitalizing on. Okay. And that means ramping that marketing budget up. If it has to go to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, make that over the next 6 months. Okay. So bump it up a point over the next 6 months. This is an investment opportunity. Invest in your marketing. So Dr. Pete, we know that there is this money gap. We know there's a reality. Some people are like, okay, that's great. I can't get blood out of a stone, right? So I remember my son off at soccer camp sending me a text, right? So the text was, he was off at a sleepaway camp for the first time, right? And I remember the text, no mun, no fun, your son, right? And I texted back, too bad, I'm sad, you're dad. So at the end of the day, we know how to make it happen even when we don't have the capital, right? So get creative. That's what we're going to encourage everybody right now. If you're in that, man, I'm in that gap right now, I don't have the money today to start marketing. Next week, what can we do where I'm not going to spend a lot of money? So Dr. Pete, you and I, neither one of us come from a silver spoon, right? There ain't no silver spoons here. Right? So I know your story, like my story. Camilla and I, by the time we came out of school and opened up our practice, she had her student debt. I had my student debt. We had $250,000 in student debt between the two of us. We signed a $255,000 lease. There's $500,000 in debt. We had $75,000 business line of credit that I took out. And, by the grace of God, I had washed windows all through school. So I had some cash, sold my business to my brother, used that money to buy and get me started in my spot. But I spent all that money and put myself out on a limb, man. I went after it. Like you said, my rent was $6,700 a month in a primo location in Boston, but we had $700,000 in debt, and we were living in the in-law apartment of my parents' house in Woburn, Massachusetts. There's no silver spoon here, man. There was no safety net. There was no money in the bank. We had to be creative, innovative, scrappy, and we went after it gripping and grinning. And I didn't have money to spend. In fact, there was no Facebook marketing, right? So there was no Facebook yet. Right? So, we did it old school style, and most of that old school is new school and works well today. And most of it costs no money. I know this to be true because I had no money. It was time, energy, and focus. When all you got is time, you spend your time marketing.
Okay, let's take a quick break and talk about Chiro Matchmakers.
Chiro Matchmakers will help you find the right person for the job. If you're looking to hire the ideal chiropractic assistant, Chiro Matchmakers will help you find the specific person missing from your team so that you can get back to using your talents to serve more people. Or if you're looking to hire the ideal associate doctor, CMM can help. Chiro Matchmakers helps chiropractors like you find the ideal associate doctor to unlock your practice potential and get you the freedom that you desire. To learn more, go to chiromatchmakers.com.
CLA has been a transformative influence in the chiropractic profession for over 25 years, creating scanning technologies that detect the impact that subluxations have on the nervous system and the power that adjustments have to unlock the healing potential. The Insight scanning technology that delivers a core score report brings the spine and nervous system to life so that patients can see the changes and so you can make chiropractic real to them. It makes the invisible visible. It's the most cost-effective, standardized approach using objective findings to build confidence in your patients, allowing you to design customized, clinically relevant care plans. CLA clients don't guess. They test and report effortlessly. Scanning is no longer considered an option. It's the centerpiece of virtually all great attraction, conversion, and retention practices. To learn more, visit our website, insightcla.com. That's insightcla.com. And you can reach CLA directly by emailing Lisa Marie at insightcla.com and get the full story at insightcla.com/ New Patient Masterclass. And now let's jump right back into our conversation. Yeah, I mean, even talking about this, and again, I started there, but this is where we began. We began in our practices, all of us, with nothing, and look at where we are now. And I'm just so thankful and grateful for the fact that we have the story of coming from behind the eight ball. And my wife Mary and I, we still talk about, the early days, because you'll never forget the early days, the risks that you took, and just, we were on a mission. We had a big mission, big purpose, and we're still in it. We're still on it. I'm not off that road at all. I'm still wide open going, but it's just amazing what you can do when you have nothing, but you have everything, meaning you have everything going for you. We've been given the gift of the principle. We have this story, we have a message, we have a purpose, we have a gift to give the world, and the world is desperate. They're dying for it. Nobody ever did me a favor by coming in. I was doing them a favor by accepting them. It was a completely different attitude and mindset. And I just went out into the community, and you didn't always you weren't always on your A game, but you go into the community, you set up your folding table, your card table, you get your spine out, and you just start telling the story and asking folks, and next thing you know, one thing leads to another, and you start getting that energy coming into your office. And I'll tell you, one of the first ways to grow your practice, you got to get out of the four walls of your business. I'll be honest, like whenever I felt like something was off energetically, I'd be like, guys, I'm leaving. And I was like, I don't know when I'm coming back, but I'll be back. You know what I did? I needed to go see the sick and suffering people in my community. I needed to get back out there. I need to walk the hospital. I need to go to a nursing home and just take a smell and be like, oh, I'm done. I'm going back to my office.
That
I'm
smells
pissed.
Like sickness and death, right? Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Man, all I need is a little bit. I need to go to the mall and just sit there in the freaking food court and look at what people are buying and look at what they look like and feel the energy and listen to the conversations. It's like, okay, all right, I'm going back to my office. So we did that. I would take my team to the mall. I sit there. I'm like, all right, guys, I just want you to sit here and watch people.
Yeah. You don't have to go far.
We have no new patients. Where are the new patients? All right, guys, let's go. Hey, we're doing lunch. Team meeting.
Let me go show you where they are.
Yeah, team meeting. We're going. Guys, everybody get in the car. We're going. We just go and sit. I'm like, all right.
See any sick and suffering people?
What was that? You guys see it? How many people did you guys see in here? How many of those people are our patients? Did anybody see any patients? One. We saw one of our patients. Oh, that was great. How many people were here? Hundreds. Were any of them our patients? One. Okay. So did you judge those people? Could they? Maybe. Do we ask them? So the guys, the reality is like, we got to open our eyes. So sometimes the first thing I had to do was like, bam, man, I was like, get out of the office. That I had that self-talk. It was like, as soon as I was like down and feeling a little bit weak, like, oh, what are we going to do? It's like, get out of the office. So I would get out of the office. I'd go into public. I would go into settings and I'd just be like, wake up, dude. Wake up.
It's not hard to do today, right? Seeing the masquerade going on around your town. I mean,
exactly.
If it's not slapping you in the face, the reality is, Dr. Pete, is you are the messenger, because marketing is a message, right? So as soon as I want to speak into everybody right now and recognize that marketing is an act of kindness. Why? Because marketing is a message. We have a message. We have a solution. As soon as you shift in your mind, you go from selling to solving. When you recognize that there are sick and suffering people that are praying for you to show up, right? So as soon as you own the fact that you are a messenger and you have a message, which is a solution, you go from selling to solving, and they can't shut you up. So Dr. Pete, I mean, getting outside the practice is, one of those fundamental steps. And from a high level, other fundamental, just sort of to frame this whole conversation is to recognize marketing is a message, that you are a messenger, and that what we're going to talk about is we're going to drop a list here of just, these are platforms through which you deliver that message. Don't make any mistake about it. As soon as you think about marketing, it's simply a message. And there's a lot of ways to get the message to the people who are desperately looking for help and desperately looking for a solution. It seems like, my gosh, isn't that free? Isn't story free? It is. There's just different ways that you deliver the story, and you'll decide according to your budget where you want to make an investment. So Dr. Pete, it's like, big idea is making sure that you have a very clear message, a very simple, straightforward message, and you're talking about one thing, you're promoting one thing, and this continuity across all these platforms. So let's talk about internal, like some just quick list, of what are some of your favorite, no cost, I have no money. Remember, no fun, no mon, no fun, your son, right? So
Uh,
let's look at this and say, you got no money. All right. So let's get creative. Okay. What are some of the things that you just knock down, from a high level, and let's rip through some of the no cost, low cost. Let's start with just internal.
Yep. Yeah. So my first one, patient education, was newsletters. So I love just writing to my patient every week. So putting out a weekly blog, so to speak. And I used to do it, just early school days, and I still have them all saved. Is just writing a newsletter every week, and I would pick a topic I could always relate back to spinal health. And it was like you said, it's one simple message. Everything to me filtered down to one thing: get your spine checked, get your spine nervous system checked. When was the last time you had your spine nervous system checked? Have they had their spine checked? You should get your spine checked. Everything led to that. So no matter what the subject was, somebody come up to me and say, "What about this?" I'd be like, "Huh?" I'd ask so much of questions like, "Have you had their spine checked?" It's like it would always come down to that final question, like, we should get their spine nervous system checked. Have they had that done yet?
Yeah.
I don't know. What does that mean? And so, to me, like, so that was it. Like
So
everything.
it's patient education. I mean, there's lots of ways,
education.
right? So we've got the patient education. Guys, I want you to make sure you're hearing what Dr. Pete just said. This is the message. You're the messenger. So it's patient education. And how do we deliver patient education? What does that cost? Right? You could write the newsletter, no money. You could email the newsletter to your list, no money. You could print it out in your office. You got to buy paper and you have to have a printer. I get it. There's a little money, right? So, but that patient education lives in our conversion process. It lives in our table talk. It lives in your workshop. It lives in your progress reports, right? So how much money have I spent so far, guys? I'll tell you right now, let me save you the brain cells. 0. Okay.
Yeah.
It lives tableside when you're asking for referral. Like Dr. Pete says, who do you know? Have they had their spine checked? Like asking for a testimonial, asking for reviews, like I need you to hear me loud and clear here. I haven't spent any money yet. Okay. Making sure that you're writing articles, creating PowerPoints that educate the people that are in your office, create videos, have a dry erase board. We have the question of the week. Have that in your office right in front, recognizing people who are like-minded, who are recognizing their behavior and their commitment. Okay, ready, Pete? Did you tally up how much have I spent so far?
I don't think you spent any money, Doc.
Dr. Pete, you built a practice to 1,000 a week in your first year.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that because you blew a bunch of money on marketing and advertising, or did you put your ass in gear and it was time, energy, and focus? And of course, as the money was coming in, what did you do with that money? Did you buy a fancy new car, or what did you do with it?
Ford Taurus, brother.
That's right.
My CAs had better cars than me for the first couple of years, and that was fine. And actually, I drove that car, 1, because it worked. 2, I wanted to keep myself in the space where I needed to be. I had heard enough people tell me over the years, stay humble.
Yeah.
So it was
so
really,
what'd you do
really
with the
good
money?
for me. Yeah. Reinvested it back in my business. And that's what
what's
we did.
that look like?
Our business. So what did that look like? Well, for me, it was then I started to do more. I started to do dinner program. I never had a dinner program. I did all my workshops in my office. So the first time I felt like I had some cash, you know what I did? I did a dinner because I was like, I'll take people out and I'll buy them dinner. I wasn't even taking my wife out for dinner for a minute there. We weren't going on a date. So next thing you know, I'm taking a bunch of people I don't even know out to dinner, and I'm even taking myself and my wife out for dinner. What's up with that? So anyway, so make sure you take care of mama. But at the end of the day, like I was like, all right, I heard we should do this thing called dinner with the doctor. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Spend a bunch of money. That started working. Then I was like, you know what? I'm doing radio because I think you can get to the message. So boom, I'm getting a radio show. I don't care whether I don't have any sponsors because I'm nobody right now. So that's fine. I'll buy the time and I'm going to get the message out. So right away, man, it was just like I went after the radio and I went after dinners. And then we looked for more opportunities in our community, more of the events. Some of the events were bigger costs. It's like, all right, we didn't do that cost last year, but man, let's get it going and keep it going.
And we took those revenues and we reinvested and we started pushing some chips in, right? So we start doing patient appreciation events and gifting systems and referral cards and coupons, right? So it's like, now you're taking some of that money and we're still internal, right? When we start going external, Dr. Pete, I know that you were a beast on the external marketing. I know that, there 1,000 a week in your first year doesn't just happen. It took me 10 years to get to 1,000 a week. Right. And I was one of those guys who were like, I'm not spending money on marketing. I wish somebody like me grabbed me by the lapels early on and said, listen, that's about you, not about your mission. You need to start getting outside your practice. You need to start spending money. This is an opportunity for you to reinvest. Growing by 100 a week every year, that's not fast enough. That's just not fast enough, France. And that's about you and not them. So get out of your office and start that external free stuff, networking, gripping and grinning. And listen, I know you're probably telling yourself stories right now, being like, yeah, but with COVID, you know what? Let me tell you what, stop telling yourself that story now. Just stop it right now. Okay. Because we have hundreds of our coaching clients right now that are getting back out into their communities and they're getting creative with networking. So it's time. It's just time. I'm giving you permission. I'm giving you a mission. You got to get outside. You got to start your networking. And maybe it doesn't turn into a corporate talk, but it turns into a corporate webinar. That's awesome, right? You will be the person when they start doing health fairs and spinal screenings and corporate wellness programs. You will be positioned perfectly to be that person because you'll have all that momentum going in there, right? So you'll be the person when they're ready to bring in speakers. For now, do webinars if that's what you got to do.
And those things are free. Like that's what we've seen pivoting over 2020 into 2021 was, you know what, my corporate wellness talks that I used to love to do are now becoming these webinars, and everybody's used to consuming it that way. So and that's how much does that cost? Nothing. Actually cost you less because you used to have to buy them lunch. Now they're on their own to get their own lunch. And so, you get to show up and just deliver your message. And so you could actually be spending less money doing external marketing now, even than you have before. Dr. Franson, and you said this before, but I know right now people are out there doing screenings. It may not be in every city across the world, but I know that it's happening. I remember hearing, we talked to Dr. Malcolm
Rudd last week at 111 new patients, 111.
Yeah, like, incredible. They had line deep, like 10 deep of people wanting to get screened. I have other, reports from the front lines to say similar type numbers are coming in. So number one is, Dr. Stephen, you said this when we started at the beginning of this show, we want to give you permission. This is your mission. Get back out there. So again, spinal screenings, corporate wellness, these well at work programs that you can do. People are looking for, they need the message of third tier healthcare. They need it. They've heard the tier one, which is again, tier two, stay safe. Tier one, save lives, stay safe. But who's talking about building and health and promoting health promotion? Who's getting out there and doing that? This is us. This is your message. Nobody else is going to do it. And nobody can do it like you can do it, even if they're going to try. So this is your lane. This is your time. And so networking, Dr. Stephen, we talked about this. It's time to get back out and start shaking hands with other business owners and other leaders in your community.
Or hitting elbows or fist bumps or waving whatever or bowing. I don't care what it takes.
Yeah. Whatever you get. Just say, and you know what? And now people during these times, people are actually more open. So if you didn't do this early in practice and you're like, I never kind of built those relationships with other business owners and stuff like that, I should have done it. Guess what? Do it now. Why? Yeah. Because now everybody's kind of picking their head up and they're like, what's going on? And they're looking for lead. People are more willing to communicate with somebody who's in their position than ever before. So the opportunity is tremendous. The soil is ready. So go in there, build those partnerships, re-engage with people if you already had those. If you haven't, start new ones, build new relationships, professional relationships with other businesses and in your community, and let's start going and growing. It is the time. And we haven't even gotten to the digital side yet.
And let's talk digital, because digital can be big bucks, right? Or can be absolutely free. Right? So let's talk about just the free stuff first, right? So talking about doing webinars, like dedicated webinars, man, I hope when everybody's, saying, all right, so we're back to doing dinner talks, we're back to doing corporate talks and outside talks and church talks, please don't abandon the webinars, right? It's not an or conversation, it's an and conversation. You got to be doing these webinars. They're so productive, especially like our 3x30 webinars. People are killing it with that and getting those awesome results and outcomes and lots of new patients from that. Talk about qualified new patients coming out of a 3x30 webinar. You can't find a more qualified new patient. I'll tell you what, they're even more qualified than a referred patient in the practice. Frankly, they've already heard your story, raise their hand, they're coming in. Right? We have Facebook. Facebook's powerful with Facebook forums. I know Facebook ads are jumpy and they're all over the place and there's all kinds of restrictions, whatever. You better have a forum. You better have brought your tribe inside your forum. We told you that 2 years ago. It's more important now than ever, because now you can actually speak to the captive audience of people who've raised their hand and said, I love your stuff, I want more. So doing Facebook Lives inside of your Facebook forum, and then bombing other people's backyard, they call it, where you jump into other forums of like-minded people and show up as an expert. Don't be a jackwagon that's just in there pitching and selling. Be in there adding value. And guess what? You add enough value, people will follow you. They'll come and find you, right? So jump into other forums, right? So your Instagram page, does it tell your story, right? Are you using stories? Are you using reels? Again, guys, how much money have we spent so far? I get the answer, 0. Okay. So get your local Instagram influencers, right? So you find some social influencers out there, not like, don't go after the Kardashians, right? So you don't need to get out there. You need somebody who's a local influencer, somebody who's got 25,000 followers and they're, the head CrossFit athlete in your town, right? So that's the person you want coming into your office and saying, man, you got to go see Dr. Pete Camillo. He is amazing. I'm here getting my adjustment, right? So that's how you leverage Instagram, right? So your YouTube channel, man, if I went to your YouTube channel right now, would I see the number 1 and number 2 types of videos, the how-to videos and the question of the week videos? Are you doing those, docs? Do you know how to do those, right? How much money have we spent, Pete? I think I'm still on 0, right? So your SEO, making sure that your number 1, your website works. And it works, right? It works. In other words, you're following SEO practices, especially with your content marketing. Make sure nothing's broken, right? No toxic links, etc. Now I'm spending a little bit of your money, right? So SEO is more important. Search is more important than ever. But make sure that you got your content there. Make sure that you are leading in your content marketing so that you're the most relevant expert in town. Written word's going to help you, video is going to help you, and making sure that your reviews are all lined up. All of that's going to help you because search becomes more important than ever. We spent a little bit of money on that because I'd like to have you have an SEO expert auditing your site and giving you some direction. So if you're going to spend some money on your site, that's where I want you to spend the site. And of course, the second, does it work? Is it converting? So you need to look at that website and make sure it's converting new patients. That's the purpose of your website. It's an employee. Right. And then, you know what, Dr. Pete, there's too many things to go through here. There's too many things to list. I'm excited about what's to come. I know we're in the throes of it. I want to make sure people recognize that we're not predicting the future. What we're saying is this is currently happening. Okay. And I don't want our listeners to miss it. Right. I don't want you to miss it because it's actually going on right now. The party is happening right now. So we're telling you, get on the dance floor. Okay. It's time to push your chips in. The Remarkable Practice sees it and we want to come alongside you. We want to help you. Right. So in recognition of this opportunity, of this window of opportunity, we are pulling out all the stops, frankly, and we are swinging open the vault. When I say that literally and figuratively, our resource area is called the vault in the Remarkable Practice. Right. So if what we said here got you excited and you're saying, yes, I actually have to do those tactics, I've got to do those processes, I've got to make sure that I'm using those assets, but you're saying to yourself, I don't know how to do that, or I need some coaching or training on how to do that, it's all in the vault. So inside of the Remarkable Practice Vault, you're going to find all of the trainings, the process, the procedures, the scripting, the marketing assets, everything that you need, everything we listed here will tell you exactly not what to do, but how to do it and what to say while you're doing it. If you need help with that, we're going to put a link here in the show notes so you can learn more about the vault. So this is part 1 of a 2-part series on this renaissance, on this resurgence, on the roaring 2020s. I hope you guys are as fired up as we are. I can't wait for the next episode because we're going to be talking about the second gap, which is the replacements gap, which is where ultimately so many doctors who are in the 30 to 45,000 and can't make that leap over to the 45 to 60,000. You see a gap right here. And very often there's a revolving door going on in your practice. And yeah, you have patients that are starting, but it's a weak start. And when there's a weak start, there's poor compliance. When there's poor compliance, people drop out of care. And now you need more new patients to replace those. We call those the replacements gap, right? So this is the replacements gap. If that's you, you don't want to miss the next episode.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Now go and be remarkable.